Thank you, Hazel. Hazel Dizon there reporting live from EDSA Shaw in Mandaluyong. President Aquino deferred the EDSA rehabilitation project to iron out the inconveniences it might pose to motorists. Now, the Metro Manila Development Authority proposes several measures prior to the actual road repair. George Cahiles has that story.
The major concern of the Metro Manila Development Authority in the planned EDSA rehabilitation project is the traffic jam that it will cause. A study of the MMDA shows that if the project will push through, travel time from EDSA Taft to Monumento during rush hour will be increased by 2 hours. 130,000 vehicles or 40% of the total volume of vehicles will not be able to traverse EDSA daily. With this, the MMDA is proposing several measures before the actual road rehabilitation. First, the immediate construction of the integrated provincial bus terminals. Second, the reblocking of badly damaged pavements of EDSA during weekends. And third, the improvement of possible alternate routes in case 2 lanes of EDSA will be closed. The MMDA says after the construction of the integrated provincial bus terminals, around 7,000 buses will no longer ply EDSA.
Yung sinabi ko kay Secretary Abaya, kahit hindi ganun kaganda, para ma-jumpstart na lang habang nakalipat na, tsaka ayusin.
Tolentino says the structural design of the bus terminals were already presented and the bidding process may start April this year. The integrated bus terminals will be constructed in North Avenue, FTI Taguig, and near Coastal Road. Meanwhile, the MMDA says only 7.88% of EDSA needs to be reblocked.
Ang total area ng EDSA is around 800,000 square meter. So, i-compare mo yung 62,000 na for reblocking nila, it's around 7.88% na lang. So, baka uubra na gawin na lang nila kapag weekends.
Resha says since the EDSA rehabilitation is on hold, the DPWH may opt to do the reblocking little by little during weekends. She says the MMDA is willing to give permit if the DPWH decides to operate that way. George Cahiles, Solar News.
A medical legal expert from the Public Attorney's Office says a witness to the slay case of environmentalist Jerry Ortega did not commit suicide. Autopsy reports revealed the victim was actually murdered. Joyce Ilas has this story.
The key witness in the murder of environmentalist and broadcaster Jerry Ortega was killed. This was the findings of the Public Attorney's Office's medical legal expert after Dennis Aranas' body underwent autopsy on Sunday. Aranas, the alleged lookout in the Ortega slay case, was found dead last week in his cell at the Quezon District Jail. The National Bureau of Investigation earlier ruled that Aranas committed suicide by hanging himself.
Ang paraan ng pagpatay sa kanya ay manual, ining kamay, at saka ligature strangulation. Ginamitan siya na pangsakal na maaaring tali o maaaring bagay na pwede ring wire ang ginamit sa kanya.
The post-mortem examination of Aranas' body showed a ligature or a cord's mark around his neck. However, no noose mark was found at the back of Aranas' head, which means somebody may be holding the cord that strangled him. Fingernail marks were also found on the right part of Aranas' neck, which means he was probably strangled. Fingertip marks were also noted on his wrists and bruises were observed on his lower legs, which means Aranas could have been pinned down.
Minimum of 4. Isang umahawak sa paa, may umahawak sa kamay, merong sumasakal sa kanya ng kamay, at merong may hawak na ligature.
Aranas' brother Alfonso believes the witness's death was connected to the Jerry Ortega slay case. Aranas was earlier removed from the Witness Protection Program last year and was transferred to the Quezon District Jail due to a standing murder case in Lucena, Quezon. Alfonso said his brother earlier felt he was framed up on another murder case to remove him from the WPP.
Yung sa paglipat niya sa Lucena, doon siya nangangamba kasi hindi niya talaga alam yung kasong yun eh. So nag-iisip siya kung bakit ako kailangang ilipat dito sa Lucena. Hindi naman akong gumawa nito.
Because of this, Aranis's brothers sent a letter to Interior Secretary Ma Rojas and Justice Secretary Laila de Lima, seeking for a second autopsy to know the real cause of their brother's death. PAO will also submit its post-mortem report to the DOJ and the DILG. Meanwhile, PAO Chief Persida Acosta is calling on the government to install closed-circuit television cameras in jails nationwide.
Sabi sa akin, ng ibang mga taga-Quezon, kailan lang meron sinabing nagpakamatay din doon sa jail na yun. So talagang kailangan may makapagpundar ng CCTV camera ang ating BGMP sa bawat selda para makita kung ano yung nagaganap doon.
Joyce Ilas, Solar News.
The whistleblower in the botched NBN ZTE deal, June Lozada, posts bail at the Sandigan Bayan for 2 graft charges filed against him by the Office of the Ombudsman. AC Nichols filed this report.
More than 2 weeks after the Sandigan Bayan issued an arrest warrant over his graft charges, engineer June Lozada surrendered to the PNP Criminal Investigation and Detection Group at Camp Crame early today. After undergoing booking procedure which includes fingerprinting and taking of mugshots, Lozada went straight to the Sandigan Bayan to post bail for the 2 counts of graft he is facing. He was accompanied by nuns from the Association of Major Religious Superiors of the Philippines, or AMRSP, which has given Lozada refuge in the past 2 weeks. The AMRSP chipped in to post a 60,000 peso bail for Lozada and another 30,000 pesos for his brother Jose Orlando.
Naniniwala kami sa katotohanang ipinaglalaban ni June. We found out that what he said was truthful. And because he wanted to take the risk for the sake of truth, then we assured him of our continuing support and presence.
Lozada made headlines in 2008 when he testified before the Senate on the alleged anomalous broadband network deal between the Philippine government and Chinese firm ZTE during the Arroyo administration. After he blew the whistle on the NBN ZTE deal, Lozada placed himself under the custody of the AMRSP for security reasons, but eventually returned to his home in Pasig. It was only recently that Lozada again took refuge with a religious group after armed men went looking for him in his home.
Na yung mga armadong elemento ngayon, kahit nung nakarang administrasyon, may mga attempt pero hindi ganito katapang, hindi ganito na sumusugod sa bahay, tinatakot mga kasama ko sa bahay. Palainta ng Panginoon na wag nila ako maunahan, no?
The charges against Lozada stemmed from his alleged corrupt practices when he was president and chief executive of the Philippine Forest Corp in 2007 and 2008. He is accused of leasing out public property to his brother and private firm Transforma Quinta, in which he had a direct or indirect financial interest. Lozada did not hide his dismay over the graft complaint against him. Lozada is set to be arraigned before the Sandigan Bayan 4th Division on March 6. On the same day, he will testify before the court on the NBN ZTE deal proceedings.
Alam nyo, ito nga ang irony nito. Sa Marso 6, nasa 4th Division ako ng Sandigan, una i-arraign ako. Dahil sa aking sa charges sa laban sa akin. Pagkatapos nun, ako naman ang titistigo para sa gobyerno. So, alam nyo, kahit na hindi ako abogado, di ko maintindihan ito.
Lozada said posting bail proves he is not trying to evade arrest, and he is willing to follow legal process. AC Nichols, Solar News.
In other news, the Environment Department sent a team of veterinarians and biological experts to Bunawan, Agusan del Sur to determine the cause of death of Lolong, the largest crocodile in captivity, according to the Guinness Book of World Records. DENR Secretary Ramon Pajes said the team is composed of representatives from the Protected Areas and Wildlife Bureau and the National Museum, which will make sure that Lolong's skin will be preserved. Paje added Lolong's death is a significant loss to the DENR and the country's crocodile conservation program. Lolong died last night in his pen at the Bunawan Eco Park and Research Center. Earlier, Bunawan Mayor Edwin Elorde spoke with Solar News Cebuano on the cause of Lolong's death. Here's some experts of the interview.
So far siguro, walay angay iblim na gani ang tao na may katapusan. Kana kung unsay
makitaan nga
makitaan
cause of
nga mga
death.
hinungdan, hopefully nga mapangitaan siya og solusyon para dili na may tabo sa uban pa nga mga mannak nga giprotektahan sa atong panggobyerno. Sa karon gipakuha pa na akong accurate data pero akong paabot sa atong mga naminaw na sa pagkakaroon aduna pay existing pondo si Lulong kay naagid siya special trust fund nga mukabat og 2 ka milyon kayang pondo. Wa na magamit hangtod na namatay si Lulong. Diha nato gikuha mga maintenance ni Lulong, other expenses para lang sa kanlulong. Wa gid mo na ilang tipod sa other purpose kundi para lang yung Lulong. Sa among common nga paglantaw sa Paudi o sa Crocodile Park ug Davao nga pinagi kang Mr. Sunny Dizon ang owner niini. Among nagtabang po si Mr. Sunny Dizon o ang Paudi na ma-preserve.
The PSE's main index breached the 6,500 mark today. This morning, volume trading went up as high as 6,500.08 points. Despite this development, the stock market closed at 6,458.01 points. Trading was down by 66 points or 0.01%. Stock analyst April Litan sees a correction in the market soon with the main index going back to 6,100 points. She says a large number of short-term investors will start selling their shares to take their profits while the market is trading high. The Energy Department says fuel prices are expected to go up by as much as 1 peso per liter this week. DOE Secretary Jericho Petilla says the price hike could continue due to the escalating tensions in the Middle East and the expected recovery of the U.S. economy. Petilla adds higher ethanol prices in the world market is another contributing factor to the price hike, pointing out that this could cause a 40 centavo per liter increase in the country's gas prices. Foreign direct investments reached $1.2 billion from January to November last year. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas says the figure is 1.1% higher compared to the same period in 2011. The BSP adds the bulk of the investment inflows came from the U.S., Australia, the Netherlands, Japan, and the British Virgin Islands. Shares of the Philippine National Bank increased after its merger with Allied Bank took effect last February 9. In a disclosure to the Philippine Stock Exchange, PNB reported an increase in its common shares by more than 420 million. The bank's Filipino-owned shares also increased by almost 270 million, while foreign-owned shares increased by more than 150 million. The Health Department advises the public to be cautious of food and waterborne diseases that may spread during the Panagbenga or Flower Festival in Baguio this month. Health Assistant Regional Director Amelita Pangilinan says the public should be extra careful when eating street food as this may cause diarrhea and food poisoning. She also reminds the public of proper hygiene, such as regular hand washing. The advisory comes days after a reported increase in diarrhea cases in Baguio and the rest of the Cordillera region. Welcome back. A militant group says the government should retain the operation and maintenance of MRT and LRT trains and should not pass this burden to commuters. Jelly Bilhera tells us more.
Amidst plans for a fare hike this year in the country's mass transport systems, members of RILA's network insist the government should find ways to improve public transport without putting the burden on commuters. RILA spokesperson Sammy Malunas says operation and maintenance of trains should remain with the national government as provider of public transportation. He adds that the MRT and LRT earn enough revenues to sustain operations.
Kaya lang ito kinakapos at nagsusubsidize ang pamahalaan na tayong bilang mamayan dahil sa mga kontrata, mga onerous contract na paborable sa mga pribado. At labis-labis yung kanilang pakinabang. Halimbawa sa MRT, 15% guaranteed interest ng mga private investor dyan.
Under the proposed hike, commuters will have to pay 10 pesos more when traveling from end-to-end stations. Malunas adds privatization does not necessarily mean improved services.